welcome to the Mitches podcast. Thanks for being here, Steve.
Yeah.
Steve, how do you say your last name?
Karmazyn.
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 There you go.
I want to say it's like the least difficult name that I struggle with.
Oh, that's an interesting
Does
way to
that
put
make
it.
sense?
Yeah, I think like it looks more intimidating than it is, you know? Like Karmazyn, those are pretty common words and like relatively easy to pronounce.
Yeah.
I just think because of the ZYN is spooky.
Yeah.
That's where people get thrown off. Yeah.
Your family was like, how can we make this difficult?
We love annoying people. You know me pretty well, Karen. I love being annoying. It's my favorite thing. I excel at it. So yeah, it started with honestly, it's a heritage. Yeah, we've been doing that for years. That's our favorite thing.
I want to say not that you like to annoy people, but I want to say you're not afraid to get into it.
Yeah, it's one of my worst. I mean, it's both my worst and best quality. But yeah, I get into. I mean, even last night I had a fucking issue. Can I swear on this? I don't know.
Yes.
Go ahead. I had an issue even last night where it's like, yeah, I've got to be better at balancing. Like, I don't think the shit I say is wrong, or the people I'm being. I wouldn't say aggressive, but the people I'm like bringing an issue up with like are undeserving of it. But it's like a more mature person would just let it go and not, fixate on it. And that's both a fault, but I also think, in a way, a good thing. I don't know.
It causes more comedy in your life.
Sure. Yeah, comedy, we'll call it. No, I don't know. I think it's like, I've always been like that. I think it, it makes you enemies, obviously. But I also think it's, when you speak your mind all the time, people can at least always know, like, no one has to worry, like, oh, I don't know what he thinks about me.
Yeah.
So that's the one benefit. It's like, everybody who thinks I don't like them probably is correct. And everyone thinks I do like them is also probably correct. And a lot of people, I'm sure, don't like me and talk shit about me and whatever. And it's like, that's fine. I'm totally okay with that. Like, I more or less, to an extent, like who I am. So,
I like that you're a fun person to debate with. Some people don't have opinions or enough opinions. You can only talk to them about like 3 things. I feel like you have an opinion on everything.
Everything. I'm also a genius, so debating with me is you've already lost, actually, if you even invented the debate. But no, I am very opinionated, certainly. Probably too opinionated, but yeah, that's like a benefit and a curse, right? It's like, it's good because you have thoughts on things and you have a specific way of looking at it, but it's also bad because it's like, there's shit I really shouldn't give a shit about or have an opinion on, but I do,
I wonder if you have something sort of similar that I had, which was like the teachers didn't like me in elementary school, but they did in high school.
I had teachers that loved me in elementary school, and I had teachers that hated me in elementary school. I had a teacher in grade 2 said I was too stupid for French immersion, said I should get out. This was told to my parents, legitimately. And as you know, I'm a genius. So by grade 4, I was doing a lot better, and she went back and apologized to my parents.
Oh.
Yeah, because they were like, she was like, oh, I spoke too soon or whatever.
But did she hate you, or she just thought?
I'm a troublemaker. I've always been a troublemaker. I've always tried to be like funny in class or like fuck around. Troublemakers may be a bit extreme, but like, I hate being told what to do. I hate being wrong. I hate, anyone trying to have authority over me. Even when I was a kid, I hated that. So I think that made me troublesome for some teachers, especially the ones that were a bit more, I guess, I don't want to say militant, but the ones who wanted, like, I want to have total authority. There was difficulty there. But the ones who, like, liked me and appreciated that I was, like a cute kid or whatever, funny kid, whatever, or even, like, just like that I was good at school, like, those ones I really got along with. So it was just a matter of, it's a personality thing, which I guess, holds true to today. Yeah. Some people like me, some people don't,
I always thought, like, for a lot of the time that I knew you, I thought you were a lawyer.
I mean, that's you just being racist to Jews. Like, oh, he's Jewish, must be a lawyer or accountant. No, I mean, that's what my dad wanted me to be. It's my brother's a lawyer. I hang out with Chanel. Chanel's a lawyer. I guess that's a little bit of it. But, yeah, I probably would have made a decent lawyer because I have an argumentative personality. But, yeah, I don't know. I actually took the LSAT. I did okay, but I didn't get into law schools. The ones at least I applied to. I just never applied after that, just one time.
You weren't like, I feel like some people are so keen on it, they'll find a way in. And then there's a lot of people where they have that kind of like, they're good at language stuff, so they consider law, but if it's not happening, they just do something else.
Yeah, like I had a good score. I got like a 160 or whatever, which is like an okay score. It's like the minimum you have to get to like get into some of the gooder, like the better school. Gooder. There you go. That's why I didn't get in with some of the better schools. But my grades are okay. Like my grades are all like B pluses, A minuses, so not like A pluses. in university, at least my undergrad. But I also never really wanted it. Like I was just doing it as like something else to do. Like I was there was like a period from like age 23, 24 to like 26, 27 where I was a bit depressed in those years. And those are the years you're thinking about law school.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you think a lot of people are lawyers because of depression? Or
well, just pressure. I mean, it's one of those things, like it's if you want to make a lot of money and like, have a decent life, financially and be comfortable. I think there's a lot of like, it's like be a doctor or be a lawyer, especially for Jews. It's like the two professions, right, that people respect, quote unquote. And I think it's the idea is like if you grow up with, we were talking about this earlier, like, my dad grew up poor. So I think for him, it's important for his children to have like jobs with like financial means, like access to financial means or whatever.
Yeah.
So I think, that's one element of it. But there's like, I don't know, I don't see any good part of law. You know what I mean? Like I don't think, when people think of lawyers, they think of like pretty detestable people. There are good lawyers and there are lawyers that do good work, but the legal system is just like kind of a bullshit or like creation, by whatever. I'm fucking going off on a tangent, but like, yeah, maybe I'm just saying that because I didn't get in, but I don't know. I just don't like, I don't really have much respect for the legal system, particularly to begin with. So
I have respect for the legal system. I just think I read this or heard this thing in a movie once where the girl goes like, something like, law is a life of tedium punctuated by moments of stress.
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, that's what I think that is.
Makes sense. But it's like also like, I mean, if here's the thing, if our legal system, we talk about justice, it's like if you can afford a good lawyer, justice is a much broader term for you. The things you get away with are much wider relative to if you're poor.
And I think there's a thing too that's like, that most parents know, which is that if you have a reasonable amount of money coming in, you won't struggle in life. You might be bored sometimes, but you'll always be fine.
Exactly, and that's like a obviously responsible and reasonable way to look at the world is like have a good source of income and afford all this other bullshit, whatever. But it's like, yeah, and I agree with that, so I understand that element of it. But I think, yeah, just working in the legal system would, like I said, I don't respect it. I mean, like, here's like a perfect example. Because this was I have a degree in economics and law, and
so wait, you have a degree?
A master's in economics and law.
But it's not a law degree.
No, well, it's a European economics and law degree.
So is that why I thought you were a lawyer?
Maybe. I mean, maybe I've said that before. I don't know. I don't present my like CV before I do stand up, but pardon me. But yeah, no, I did the program. It's like when you learn about economics and law, it's like it's all about defending property to an extent, and it's orchestrated in support of property and money to an extent, and like that's kind of, for me, especially with my political leanings, like that's kind of detestable. And then it's like you don't even have to take a degree for it. It's like if you steal $100,000 from someone, or even $10,000 from somebody, you'll probably go to jail for a few years. Probably. I don't know enough about the legal system, but certainly if you steal enough money, you'll go to jail for a while.
Yeah.
If you as a person steal. If you as part of a corporation steal, you'll get fined. And then you can steal billions and billions and billions. And you could be actively making those decisions to commit crimes, but ultimately you'll just get a fine. You won't go to jail for anything. You could ruin people's lives, drain them entirely of their money. But so long as it's done under like the ambit of a corporation to an extent. Obviously there's like, you can't, there's different limits on it, but you can get away with huge amounts of theft, and it won't matter, the penalties are way less. A good example is like Volkswagen, right? Like they lied about their this is years ago, but they lied about their
the EV.
Yeah, the EV, exactly, and they had to pay a fine for it.
Yeah.
But that was it, right? And they ended up stealing like theoretically millions of dollars and like damaging the planet and doing all this horrible shit. So yeah, I don't know. What I'm saying is we should kill all these people. That'd be my perfect.
How left are you?
Pretty left. I'm not like communist or whatever. Like I think communist is kind of a fungible term anyways. But yeah, like my politics are very, very left. I'm just like, ultimately my politics, I mean, I don't know if this is what we're supposed to be talking about, but my politics are like I sum them up always like, I think everybody deserves like food, clothing, a home, access to education, that's it at all times, right? Irrespective of whatever you do, you get all those four things. And I'm sure there's other things I could, mention if I'm really thinking about it. But yeah, just everybody should have those access to those baseline goods and services. And then, from there, I don't care how much money you make, so long as everybody in society can like afford to like, eat, live, maybe go on vacation 1 week a year, like just doing like basic, what I would consider humane shit. That's where I kind of, draw the line.
That's cool. I like
Okay,
that. I like
yeah.
that politics.
Sure, yeah. I also believe that we should just murder. No, I don't know. That'd be cool. Awesome. Yeah, I believe Jews are superior. That's my other thing. Yeah, no. I hate Jews. We know about this, but yeah.
How Jewish is your family?
I mean, like, stereotypically a lot, but, like, religiously not really. Like, my dad's an atheist. My mom doesn't give a shit. But I think, my grandparents, 3 of them were in the Holocaust, so it's important for us to, like, it's important for me even, I would say, to, like, call myself a Jew for that reason alone.
What countries were they in?
Poland. All 3 were Poland. So I have one Moroccan grandmother,
Yeah.
so she had her own, honestly, she had a tough upbringing herself, but she wasn't at least in the, part of that shit. But my other 3 grandparents were in Poland, so they went to, like, 2 of them were in Auschwitz, and one of them was just on, like a labor building, like, railroads and shit.
Shit. All right. Are they still alive?
No, they're all past now. Yeah.
Do you think about that whole thing with like that generation passing on, like what that will mean?
It's a good question. I mean, it's weird to think, like, if I ever have kids, I don't know that I want them, but if I were to have kids, it's interesting because it'll just be such a faint memory to them. Like, for me, even it's a memory, but at least I have some, like, firsthand connection to it because I met, my grandparents. I spoke to them, I saw them in the flesh, whereas they'll just hear a story.
Yeah.
So it's like, yeah, it's definitely, but that's natural, right? Like, there were, no one talks about World War I really all that much anymore.
Yeah.
Because everyone who was there is dead.
It's weird. Like, when I was growing up, I really thought of myself a lot as being Greek because, like, the old people in my family had Greek accents and they talked about the old country, and we were just like a Greek family.
Mm-hmm.
And then it was maybe like 10 years after my grandmother passed away, I was like, am I Greek? Like, because I don't talk, like, I'm not part of the Orthodox Church, and it's just a lot of what made us Greek was we had those older folk, and now that they're gone, it's like, I don't know.
It's your culture, right? Like, it's your history, right? And if you lose the direct connection to it, it just becomes stories, and, like, maybe you celebrate, like, I don't know. Is there, like, a Greek holiday? Spanakopita Day or something? I don't know.
Like, we used to do, the Easter is done on a different
right,
time
you guys
of
have
year.
different Easter.
But
yeah.
my sister's kids don't do.
Right, so then it's already being.
So it's sort of like, now I think her kids just sort of, like, name a bunch of different European countries as their place, but
Right.
I think they're just Canadian,
Right.
They don't.
And that's kind of a shame. I mean, I think obviously being Canadian is great, and I consider myself Canadian more than anything.
Yeah.
But it's nice to hold on to a little bit. Like, again, I'm an atheist. I don't believe in any of the religious elements of it. I don't even know if if I have kids, if I would circumcise a son, I have no idea. But, I would still celebrate, like, Passover, Hanukkah, like the holidays. Like, that to me is more cultural, and it's like,
Yeah.
there's a history to it. And I think that part I can get behind. So I think that's, like, the nice element of it. So, for if you're Greek, I don't know, like, what specific Greek holidays there are, but, like you said, Easter on a different day or whatever.
I guess it's like, but then it's just the Christian holidays, right?
Yeah. But there's, like, a Greek spin. I'm sure there's a Greek way of doing Christmas and a Greek way of doing Easter and, even, like, big fat Greek wedding. I know it's, like, silly, but, like, it's, like, a very,
Yeah.
there's a lot of, like, cultural Greek elements, I assume. Unless it's total fabrication, you think it's all bullshit, but.
No.
No?
I just think there's something about, like, yeah, I don't know.
Okay. I figured we could, like, if you want to make this spicy, we can talk about interesting things.
What do you want to talk about?
I always thought you didn't like me because when I was booking for keys.
I did not like you booking for
See, all right, I knew it.
But I think, I don't know. It wasn't you personally.
Mhm.
It was just like, I always booked through Key, and then you were just this, like, random guy who showed up.
Mm.
And also then I didn't get booked a lot.
Yeah, I think, I mean, that's totally fair, and I totally get your perspective. My only thing on keys was when I was booking for, like, the 3 weeks before it all fell apart because every other comic who got booked there all the time was like, basically like, oh, I want to get on. It was just very much like, and this is keys is, the benefit and the curse of it was it did put us on every weekend, every Friday, Saturday when there were shows, which is great. But the other element of it is, like, there's a lot better comics, not even better, there's a lot of other comics in Toronto. Forget about better even. There's a lot of better comics than in Toronto, but even then, there's a lot of other comics in Toronto who never do keys. And it was just us all the time. And my whole thinking was, like, wouldn't it be nice if we got some different people in there? Wouldn't it be nice if people stopped thinking of keys as an insane place and, thought of it as an actual club? That was my whole intent. But then again, it all just fell apart because, everybody, I guess nobody knows keys on it, but whatever, gives a shit. It's just a club. But it was like everyone who did frequent the club all the time got upset because they were losing out. And I get that too. I get both perspectives on it. But my whole view on it was like, I didn't want to book myself every Friday, Saturday. Like my goal was like, I'd rather the club do really well because Keys is helping us out. We have better acts, I mean better, but yeah, I'll just say better acts than the ones that were there every weekend, myself included, right? And try and like make it like a real quote unquote club, but it just wasn't going to be the case. And I love Keys for what it is, and even though that happened, it was still amazing after, and it was amazing for a long time. It even blew up on Twitter when everyone was going crazy about it.
Did you only book for 3 weeks?
Yeah, literally 2 weeks. There was, I don't want to name names because it's like I don't want to be bitchy about it, but there's people who were like complaining to him and then would call me and tell me about it. Yeah, I worked with Ben. Ben asked me to help him book for it, and then totally kind of abandoned it. So that I had to eat a lot of shit.
Yeah, because I originally thought that Ben was the one that wasn't booking me, and then I think I gave him hell, and he was like, I don't even book there.
He asked me to help him, that son of a bitch. Although I like Ben a lot. I do like Ben. But he asked me to help him, and then he just fucking, did his own thing. But yeah, it was whatever. I mean, I tried, and then it failed.
Did he fire you, or he was just like...
Yeah, well, I mean, again, I don't want to name names, but you could probably guess who called Keys and was upset that they weren't getting booked every day. And then after that happened, and I talked to that person also, and after that happened, Keys just gave me a call. He's like, I appreciate you, brother, but I'm gonna go back to book. I was like, okay. And then he wanted me to book for when it was Stage West for a bit. He tried to get me to book for a bit, but it's like I didn't want to get back involved again because I knew there was all these like competing interests, and it just wasn't worth it for me.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd rather just go and perform and not have to fucking... Like, running the club is not my ideal scenario. And also denying myself spots, those are not ideal. So it's like, if people want to go back to the original thing where I get a spot every fucking Friday, Saturday, I'm like, well, why would I complain? You know, so I didn't mind it. I just thought it was worse for the club and worse for the scene, but, whatever, gives a shit. Better for me. So that's one thing.
What's the other spicy thing you want?
I don't know. I thought I had something else in my mind that I wanted to talk about, but that was the only it's totally gone. Well, I'm already drunk. I'm most lightweight. You give me one beer,
Do you want another drink?
No, that'll be awful for this show. I'll puke. I won't actually puke, but I'll get fucked up. Like I'm already pretty fucked up.
Do you get fucked up easy?
Yeah. I'm such a lightweight. I'm
That's
very
weird.
lightweight. Yeah.
Like why?
'Cause I'm fat.
I thought that would slow alcohol down.
Fat does. No, you should be a better drinker being fat, but I've always been a lightweight my entire life. And I haven't eaten a ton today.
Yeah.
So maybe those two elements. Like I can get drunk on 2 beers irrespective of what I eat. Today I've had like a sandwich. So that's why and I walked a ton with my girlfriend.
Yeah.
Brag. The fuck. I'm getting pussy out here, fellas. No, my girlfriend's great. But I had something else I want to talk about.
Keys happening?
On the East End, yeah. I want to go. Keys messaged me the other day saying, I miss you, brother, and I miss him. I really do love Keys. Like, there's no one who's been more supportive of my comedy than Keys. Like, that's objective. But, like maybe Shania or whatever, like maybe my friends, but, and I guess Keys is a friend, but you know what I mean? Like, someone who's been supportive and also has the means to actually show that support by, like, giving me a spot all the time. And I'm like, I'm not saying I'm the best comic by any means, but I'm like, I'm much better now than I was because of Keys. Because I was able to do so much performing there. Like I riff so much now because of what Keys has shown me. Like my ability to riff, my skills at it, the effect it has on a crowd. Like riffing is, for certain crowds, it's what they want to hear.
Yeah.
They want to hear you talk bullshit.
Yeah, I did my first open mic there, and then he booked me. He was the first person who ever booked me. So from a confidence level, that was really big for me.
Yeah.
And then I just was going there regularly on Fridays and Saturdays. So just in terms of getting in, because a lot of the time, like when you work a full-time job, sometimes you're trying to get out every day, but you don't get out as much during the week. And then I'd have that energy on Friday and Saturday, but that's the hardest time to get booked on a show, right? But
yeah. Well,
I can
brag for you because I'm unemployed right now. Showing me up here. But no, I get what you mean. It's tougher. It's very difficult to do a 9 to 5 or any job really and do comedy. But if you do it if you love it.
Yeah.
Like I love doing comedy. Like whether this turns into anything or not, obviously my dream. Oh, it would be amazing if I made money off this and I could live off it. And this was my one job, sure. But even if I didn't, like I still just enjoy doing it. Like I do love getting up there, holding a mic, saying obscene bullshit,
Yeah.
saying things that only I can say, whether they're funny or not to the audience, at least, I enjoy them and I try them and I'll work on them. And sometimes they work, sometimes they don't. And all that to me is like the exciting part of it.
I did free times cafe for the first time
Yeah,
ever.
it's a good room.
And like I wasn't like killing on the show or anything, but there was like a couple people there who were like feeling me a lot.
Mm.
And then basically the rest of the room was just like oblivious. Like, but I was like, it takes so little for me to have an amazing time on stage. Like, is one person listening to me? Amazing.
Exactly. And then that's the right mentality to have. Like last night I had an awful set where I collapsed, and I didn't collapse. I listened back to the recording. I thought I collapsed. Listened back to the recording, I did all right, but the audience, some of the people certainly hated me. And I was not nice to the host when they got back, and I was like, bring it on, and whatever her fucking name is. Like, I'm not a huge fan, but it doesn't matter. We have to cut that part. But, I was just like, just kind of collapsing, and it's like, even that bad set, and that was like my first bad set in a couple months, like really bad one in a month or 2 months. And even that bad set, I was like, oh, and I still learned something. It was so fun. I still fucked around, and I know what I did wrong, and let's do it better next time.
Yeah.
You know?
It's weird too, because some of the most painful moments I've had, like, I don't know if the whole audience, it wasn't like I bombed the whole time, but sometimes there's just like one moment when I deliver a new joke, like at an open mic, and it fails, and I'm just like embarrassed because I'm like, oh, why did I think that was gonna be funny? And sometimes it just like certain moments just like really sit badly with me, even though it might not be like the biggest deal.
Yeah, that's a good point. Like some things do stick with you. Exactly, like you said, even though they don't mean anything, they do stick for whatever reason they stick with you.
Or like one bomb that I did at Keys, where like I don't even know what I did. I just went out there and like the audience just watched me the whole time. Like, what is this person doing? And for some reason, like one of the people in the audience I recognize, like she works at had worked at the grocery store near my house, and I always had like a nice rapport with her. And then I was like, this person's gonna always remember me as like, yeah, one time I went to this shitty club and this comic bombed, and she was like a weird lady that goes to the grocery store I work at.
But that's unlikely even. Like most people don't even remember unless like, yeah, maybe there's like that personal connection. But like most people forget the second they leave the place, right? Like most people will see like one comedy show a year. They'll go watch it. They'll like some people, they won't like others, and they'll totally forget about it. Like we think they can think about it all the time, but it's like they don't give a shit. You know, it's just like, what's the last movie you saw?
I don't remember.
You don't remember. So you go, you don't even remember the fucking name, let alone what happened in the movie. You know? So yeah, I don't think a lot of that, I think we put so much pressure, because we care about this and we think about it a lot, but it's rare that you leave like a real lasting impression. You know, some people will really like you, some people won't give a shit. Like I saw Mark Norman live, and obviously he's an amazing comic, but I was like, he's fine. Like I saw him live for 10 minutes, he was hilarious. But I saw him do like 90 minutes when he was doing a special here in Toronto. And I was like, for 45 minutes, I was like, it's hilarious. It's great. He's obviously a great writer, hilarious, and well, I'm not trying to talk shit or whatever, but not that it matters. I mean, he's a multimillionaire and usually successful. But by like the 45-minute mark, I was like, okay, I'm done. You know, like I heard enough. It's a lot of one-liners and all that stuff. So I was like, you know, I saw like Louis C.K. do an hour 30 by contrast, and that was amazing. But just for me, like, wasn't my cup of tea, whatever, and wasn't like I didn't find it really enjoyable, and I was sleepy, and I wanted to get out of there because it was like he did 90 minutes plus the 2 openers, so it's like really a ton of time. But at the end of the day, who gives a shit? Like, what do my opinion on Mark Norman means nothing to anybody but me.
Who are your favorite comedians?
Joe List, Louis C.K., Maria Bamford are my top 3. Do I have a fourth one I would mention? Chris Rock is really good, but it's like he's like those 3 are so high compared to everybody else. Yeah.
Who's Joe List?
You know Joe List?
I might.
He's hilarious.
What's his stuff?
He does a podcast with Mark Norman. Like they've been doing a podcast for years called, I think it's Tuesdays with Stories or something like that. And he's just a comic, a New York guy. He's been around for a long time. He's not really old. I think he's in his 40s, so he's like quite young. But he's truly hilarious. Like if you watch any of his specials on YouTube, I highly recommend. Pardon me. He's one of the in my opinion, he's the best comic working right now. Like, I think Louis C.K. It was actually funny. I was thinking about this today. Like Louis C.K. is better in that he tackles more interesting subjects, and he can like take a subject that's like truly like abhorrent or weird or gross and make it funny, and he finds different ways in. But I would put like Joe List in terms of like just pure joke writing and just like on a stage, like yeah, he's as good as anybody.
Do you know how like there's some comics you might love them, but they have nothing to do with you? Like I really love Robin Williams, but he doesn't inform my comedy at all. Like I'm not.
Yeah, no, I mean, there's lots of people. Like Maria Bamford is that for me, I guess. I mean, I want to be more like her. I want to be more like, and I talked to, Andrew about doing more like weird voices and because I'm goofier as a person, like my friends. Like I do goofier shit than I do on stage.
Yeah.
And I want to start implementing that more and integrating it into the set. So yeah, that's someone I want to be more like. Like I think when I first started, I was like, a bunch of other loser, young white boys just doing Louis C.K. shit, being like, yeah, the Holocaust, I still do the Holocaust, but I would say I'm better at it now. But no, but like that kind of shit, right? Like I think I started that way, and yeah, now I'm a bit sillier, a bit goofier, and I want to start being more leaning more into that, right? Than just the Holocaust, blah 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 bullshit. Yeah.
Like when you say the Holocaust, you mean like shocking stuff?
Not even shocking, just like I'm gonna take this super dark subject and make it silly and fun. Like, like really like biting off something pretty intense and trying to make it interesting. Or palatable. Not even interesting, but palatable. Like, if you talk about mass murder, it's kind of hard. Like that doesn't scream funny to most people. So making that funny is impressive. But as a, day 7 comic, that's a stupid thing to do. Some people can do it day 1, of course, but for most people, you don't have the tools yet to do that.
Yeah.
Like, I don't even have the tools to do that right now. Like, I could try, but even then when I try, it's still tough. Like, the more esoteric or grim the material, the more skills you need to be able to unpack it.
Yeah, for sure.
I gotta be the smartest person you've ever had on this podcast, certainly. I must be. I'm just here, I'm listening to myself being like, damn, this guy's a genius.
I feel like it was interesting for me. Like, I think the first time I saw you do comedy, you were maybe like mad about the news, and I was like, who's this like angry man? And then like when I saw you do more comedy, it was interesting, like just talking about your own life, and I was like, okay, I wasn't really seeing this coming.
Yeah, and that's funny you say that. Like the things I talk about now, I'm trying to like open up about like DOMs, wanting to date your phone, like weird shit to most people that I want to make funny and make interesting, that are interesting to me, and like they work in some crowds and don't work in others, and there's also that element of like, you want to be palatable to every audience you play for, but you also, I don't know, this sounds like pretentious or whatever, but it's like, I don't want to do like, man, isn't Hinge crazy? I don't want to do shit like that. That doesn't interest me. It works on every crowd, but, and you got to make it funny, of course. You can't just say that. But like, there's a lot of like, there's a lot of comics who will do like, wow, I'm eating ass. Anybody else? And it's like, okay. And I've heard 1,000 people talk about eating ass, and it's the new it thing to talk about or whatever. I've got nothing against eating ass.
What are all the things? It's Hinge, Trump, eating ass.
Eating ass. Those are pretty good ones. One of those I hear a lot about. Yeah, a lot of politics shit that's like just uninformed or silly or boring. Those are like the common ones. I mean, like just like Canadian stereotypes. Oh. Something I hate, desperately hate, is anyone who mentions like, I was going to hell. I mean, Dufferin Mall. And it's like, everybody explodes, everyone's laughing. And it's like, you could do 18 variations of that joke and it will work in front of a bunch of audiences. And it makes me want to blow my brains out because it's like, it's not creative, it's not interesting. Like I'm not, and someone could be like, well, you should do it. It's like, maybe I can't do it. I'm not saying, I could go out there and crush with it. I've just seen like a million variations of that shit and it bores me.
Do you have anything in your comedy that you're specifically like kind of proud of?
Yeah, I mean, they don't really work all the time and they're crazy. I'm gonna try them at the set I have in Backroom in a couple of weeks, but yeah, I do a bit about like Down syndrome Israel, which I think is very funny, but it's like very me because it's like a very specific way of looking at it. The whole joke is that like, the premise of it is like, the Nazis didn't just kill Jews, right? They killed like people with disabilities and Romani and a bunch of other people, but they only gave Jews Israel, which is a shame because Down syndrome Israel would have been way better. And I do a joke like that about that situation, right? Or that perspective or whatever. And I love that joke, but it's not, a lot of people don't like it. People will pull back. I've had people tell me like I can never tell it, but I've also had people tell me that's that's my favorite joke they've ever heard. So it's like one of those things where to me that's like a joke I could tell that I have interest in. I don't think it's particularly like, it's a lot of crazy subjects to bring up in a single comedy set or joke even. But I do think it like more or less works, and I'm gonna do it on this 20-minute thing. But it's a joke that like I think a lot of people would be like, dude, don't ever tell that joke. What are you stupid? Don't tell that joke.
When you say the 20-minute thing, that's the 20 by 20.
Yeah, Backroom with Shanil Patel.
Will you explain the concept?
Of Down Syndrome Israel?
No, of the show.
2020, okay. So I would love talking about Down Syndrome. It's just we both do 20 minutes and then we do 10 minutes together at the end. That's really it. Yeah.
Okay.
Something too crazy.
And Backroom's been doing this with different people.
Yeah,
right?
the last people who did it were Abby and I think his name is Max Ross. Is that I think that's his name?
Yeah.
Yeah. So
And
they did
then
it.
I saw, I think Vanessa Provost and
Yes.
Wayne Clark did one together. I like this concept.
Yeah, Backroom's a cool spot. I mean, I know there's issues with Backroom or whatever, but that some people have. But like, I like it. I think it's a great spot. They've been nothing but supportive to me, honestly. I mean, like, they don't really owe me any, or owe me is the wrong word, but like, there's no reason for them to give me spots other than I just show up sometimes. Like, I don't really bring too many. I brought a few people out a couple times. I had fans. But I had this one guy follow me on Instagram and then come to Backroom with his date, which was cool. That was a cool feeling. It's the first time that's ever happened.
That's amazing.
Yeah, and that's happened a couple times now recently, so I'm like, oh, I'm getting better, I guess. Both of them brown for whatever reason. Maybe I crush on the brown community. Maybe I gotta go on tour with Ash and sing. But so like I'm not like a fucking draw for them. But they've been really kind to me and they've given me a lot of spots and they've, told me really like nice things over and over again. So like that's nice, you don't really comedy is it can be very high school, it can be very like aggressive, not aggressive, but like backbiting, it can be very like it is naturally. I'm part of it. Like talking shit about people's fun. We all do it. Or a lot of people do it, I certainly do it. But it is ultimately like silly to be toxic.
Honestly though, I feel like there was a long period of time, kind of like when I was younger, I had lots of like going out friends, and then now I have comedy friends, but there was a space in the middle when I'd like quit drinking and before I got into comedy. And it's really nice to belong to a group of people where because of the shit talking. Like I know it sounds superficial or shallow, but I think it's important that you can talk about other people. I
mean, I feel like there's definitely been like psychological analyses of like the importance of shit talking to a relationship where it's like you feel like you're engaging in something that like you shouldn't be. You know what I mean? It's like one of those things where it's like, ooh, I'm being vulnerable with you. Like if I'm like, oh man, Shanil Patel is gross, I love Shanil Patel, by the way. He's hilarious and an amazing looking man. But if I say that with you, in that kind of like tone, and you're like, yeah, I agree. It's like if either of us would reveal that would be bad for us with him. Yeah. Right? So it's almost like a trust thing. It's like I trust you to share this, and now we're together with it. And
the way I think about it is like, if like he's doing something, let's say, wrong, then like our opportunity to discuss about it is like the good thing, because it's like, I don't know, like helps you plan your own life by thinking about what other people are doing. Course. And like
monkey see, monkey do.
And I can just be like, well, why do you think he did that? As opposed to if I just sussed it out in my own mind, that's limited. But if I'm like, well, what do you think? And then you're like, well, maybe he had this going through his head.
Yeah. No, that's 100% right. I think that's very like also, if I'm understanding it correctly, I think that's also like classic human behavior. It's why we all like watching like the fat guy slip on the banana, because we're like, oh, haha, he's doing things wrong, he's fat, he's slipping, he's walking wrong, and it's like, I'll do things right, I know what to avoid now. It's like, I don't know if I'm yeah. So maybe that's like a part of it, right? It's like, you examine the person failing and you examine the person succeeding, and you divorce yourself from the acts of what the person who's failing is doing, and you marry yourself to the acts of what the person who's succeeding is doing. Yeah. Right? That's very like, again, like monkey see, monkey do behavior.
Or like anything you do in your life, you've had a chance to sort of like imagine it through hearing other people's stories, or like watching a movie where a character did that. Like you didn't go to school for the first time with no context.
That's a good point. Yeah. You can like, exactly, they can give you a bit of context, perfect word for it, or like just like, you could also see that, oh, this has been done before. Like what I'm doing right now has been done. I'm not afraid of it, Even doing comedy, like when you see someone do well, like my internal, and this is the worst, I hate this part of myself, but it's like whenever I see someone crush, I'm like, oh, fuck. Like, because I got to follow it, and I'm like, oh, man, I can't do it, But whereas if someone does poorly, I'm like, oh, sweet, I can just go, and now that there's no stakes. But I mean, at the end of the day, it's like, it's better if they do well, because you can like see what works, and also it's like, it makes the crowd higher, and also you have to challenge yourself more, you know what I mean? That's a better way to, I guess, position your thinking, but,
Yeah. I think a lot of the time if I want to do something, I just need to know that there are other people doing it that are worse than me. Like not like,
Well,
I'm gonna walk in there and be the best, but just,
So long as you're not the bottom, it's like very like last deer in the herd mentality. Like I don't have to be the fastest, I just gotta make sure I'm not the slowest, right? And I think in comedy, everyone thinks that way. Like I mean, there's obviously a worst comic in Toronto, and it's like I'm not him or her, so like that's nice, Like so I guess that is like a benefit. Yeah, it's a good point.
How did you always want to do comedy?
No, like I went to school for journalism, and I always thought of myself as a journalist. But after university, I had a girlfriend who lived in Hamilton, so I had to find something in Toronto. So I got like a journalist. Like I wanted to look for job. Like my plan initially was to look for jobs for journalism anywhere in Canada, because I knew that it would be really hard market in Toronto. Like I did a internship at Globe and Mail and all this, so I was hoping obviously to like turn that into a career, but that's tough. But I would have like gone to Saskatoon or something. I wouldn't have cared. But because of the girlfriend at the time, she was in Hamilton. I had to stay in Toronto, so I ended up getting a job that wasn't really journalism. It was like more like it was writing. It was like kind of like it was just content creation that turned into marketing and et cetera, et cetera. That's my career or whatever. But throughout that time, like I always wanted to put myself like either towards something like I always loved writing as a kid. Like I used to write like novels when I was a child. Like I loved writing novels, like just writing stories generally, and I've always like in my entire like conception of myself, I've always been like whatever I do for a living, or not even a living, just like whatever I spend a lot of time on, I want it to either be something creative or something that like does like good for society. So journalism was like something that could like benefit society, but that ended up turning into like marketing, which doesn't really help anybody, to be honest. So then I was like, okay, what can I do creatively as an output? And then I stopped. I had some like head shit for a while. And it like, I don't know if that is the reason I stopped writing or if I just had less time. I don't really know the reason, but I just started falling out with writing. And I was really depressed for those years where I wasn't writing or doing anything really creative. And it really bothered me. And it kind of ruined my last relationship, honestly. It was like, I would say that was the biggest detriment. And then comedy, like I always loved listening to like, there was a podcast called Harmontown with Dan Harmon. He did it before it was like during a little bit Rick and Morty, but it was before it was from Community. So I love Community, it's my favorite show. So I used to listen to that, and he did a lot of improv on it. So I always wanted to do improv, so I did improv.
Dan Harmon is the guy who creates Community.
He created Community and he created Rick and Morty. He created both.
Oh.
Yeah. With Justin Roiland, they made Rick and Morty. Justin Roiland's the guy who got accused of, I think, like assault or something, and they fired him. That's a whole other story, but. So I loved Community. I listened to the Harmontown. He got fired from Community. There's a whole story. He's an interesting guy himself. So listen to Community, loved Community, great show. He did improv, does improv on the podcast. Went did improv. I was never particularly good at improv. Like I always had interesting sketch ideas. And when we did the conservatory, I did the show, I loved my sketch ideas, but as an actor, I don't have those skills. And like maybe if I practiced and tried really hard, but I never enjoyed acting. I never cared about it. Like I loved the writing and the production of like comedy, but the acting part never interested me. So after that I just tried stand up, and I just fell in love because it was like, oh, I get to just be myself. The acting is it's not actually performing is a huge element of it, but when I first started, it's like it doesn't matter. What matters is the joke, and that was very like enticing to me because I love just writing, and it's also nice because I wrote all these like manuscripts for novels. I never did anything with them. They're just on my computer still to this day, and I maybe sent them like 2 or 3 publishers maximum. And that was like one novel, and that was it. And I just gave up. And what's nice about comedy is you write a joke and you can try it that night. And then you can like, continue to work on it or throw it away right away, which is nice. You have to commit so much. Yeah.
Do you think, okay, first off, I can totally see you as a journalist.
Oh, okay.
I feel like that's a better way to contextualize your personality than lawyer, because that just makes a lot of sense to me. Okay. I also think there's a lot of parallels between comedians and journalists. Like in the sense of it being kind of like a very independent thing that you do. You're writing. There's a lot of like societal and social critique. The idea that you have to kind of like go against the grain of things, like journalists are asking too many questions or like exposing people. Like it's not a likable job if you think about it. And I think comedian as well. Like obviously, like we love our favorite comedians,
right?
And there's lots of movies where the journalist is
like Woodward and Bernstein are famous. Yeah,
but there has to be some degree that you're okay to be like.
You have to upset somebody.
Yeah.
No, that's a good parallel. I mean, I think like, because a lot of people hate journalists, and I totally get why. There's a lot of shitty journalists out there, and a lot of ones who just like, misrepresent things for their own benefit or for money. So I understand the hate against journalists, and I, to an extent, share a little bit of it. But like a great journalist is like a really important part of society, and they just hold, that the thing that we tell in school is like, is you hold the powerful to account, and you give voice to the voiceless. Like, it's kind of like bullshit, whatever. Yeah. But there is like an element of that, especially if you're actually doing good journalism. There is an element of that to journalism, and that's an admirable part. I just, the only thing I would push back on is like, yeah, you can in comedy, some people do talk about political stuff, some people do talk about serious shit. But there's a lot of comedians who are great, and then we'll talk about nothing more than like, I have an ingrown hair on my balls. You know what I mean? Like, that's what I would say is the difference. Like, there's not a lot of journalists who talk about totally meaningless, inane bullshit. I mean, there are, I guess, but the great journalists don't talk about totally meaningless, inane bullshit. Whereas a great comic very much can do that.
But I also think you can be like, kind of like, as a comedian, a lot of it isn't political, but it's still challenging. It's like, why do we do that? Or like you're telling on yourself a lot of the time, but then people see themselves like.
I get what you're saying, but I think it's like, again, you think of very specific comedians who do that, but like, again, Maria Bamford, Joe List, two of my favorites, they don't really do that. Like, Louis C.K. does, Chris Rock does, a lot of comics do, certainly, but there's a whole group, there's that, Stephen Wright, I think his name is, who like, pardon me, he does like weird voices and shit, he's hilarious, but he's not doing anything of any real, seriousness. Like, I think that's the difference, is like, in comedy, you can become a great comedian doing nothing of any value. Like, just, from a societal perspective, whereas...
But I'd say, like Maria Bamford is just, like, being honest about how insane she is, and that does a great benefit.
Yeah, you can twist it, not twist, that's not fair, but, like, you can look for certain aspects or elements that are, but at the end of the day, and she does talk about, like, being anorexic and all that, so it's like, yeah, I think she's anorexic or whatever she is, but, so there are elements of that where she does get serious and she does make that funny. I mean, Tig Notaro talked about having breast cancer and losing her mom, and that's a great set. So, like, yeah, that can be done in comedy, but there are many, many comedians who do nothing of that sort who are still hilarious.
Yeah, but even if you just think of, like, comedy as a kind of, like, coping mechanism for just handling, like, the failures of life. Mm-hmm. So I just tell you a story about me going to the grocery store, getting mad, and then I kicked a display of chips over, and then you laugh. And it's like that... It's like I'm giving you my coping mechanism to like help you cope with your own aggression.
Okay. Yeah. No. I mean, sure. Yeah. Like, if you want to talk about it as like an outlet, sure. I think comedy is always an outlet. Laughing is always an outlet. No matter what the comedy is or the subject, you're always going to get some sort of like benefit from expressing yourself and letting yourself go. Like, that's a great thing for everyone to do once in a while, just to go have a belly laugh about something. But I guess I'm talking from like in terms of like, real like utilitarian, like, is this beneficial to society? And I guess in that perspective it is. I guess from like, is it going to make a difference to like politics or leaders or how we live or whatever? Some comedy theoretically can make that difference, but I think ultimately it's like, no, you're just telling poo-poo fart jokes. You know what I mean? Like, a lot of the time that's what you're doing. It's not always, but a lot of the time. It's like, I've never watched a comic and been like changed my way of thinking because of what they've told me. I've read journalists or talked to people who give lectures who have changed my way of thinking about a lot of things, but that's never happened to me from comedy. And I'm someone who I'm not the biggest comedy consumer, but I'm certainly bigger than average, 100%.
Do you think if you were like, do you think ultimately comedy would be less satisfying because it doesn't do something more serious?
No, who gives a shit? We're all gonna die. Who cares whether that means anything, right? Like, I mean, that's how I look at the world. Like, part of me is upset. Like, I used to volunteer. And like, I miss volunteering, I miss helping people. And comedy is really not, I mean, making people laugh, sure, but it's like, marketing does the same amount of shit. You're helping someone's business succeed. That's way more important to most people. So it's like, yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say it's doing anything amazing. And I think any person who comes on is like, oh, I'm a comic, I'm so important, I help so many people, is a fucking liar. You're like, you're not important. If comedy were to not exist, everything would be fine. We'd be less happy, but it would not really impact society greatly, I don't think. Whereas, if people who picked up our garbage or made our food didn't exist, that would destroy our society. So it's like, in that respect, it's not that important, but it's still nice to have. It's a fun thing, That's, I guess, how I look at it.
I don't know. I feel like comedy might be like one of the most important
I
things.
couldn't disagree more.
Especially, but then I guess you can say like it gets done for free. Like any job you have, there's like somebody at your job making you laugh.
That's what I'm saying.
Right.
Like, yeah, you're like you never like. I'm not talking about totally eliminating laughter as a concept. I'm just saying, if comedians stopped existing and we stopped putting on shows, the world wouldn't really be bothered. It's like if there was no TV, people lived thousands of years without TV. They were fine, you know. And now there's TV, and it's like it's nice, but it's not important.
I would argue it's so important.
TV? Oh, you're crazy.
Like, would you go back
to
live in a period of time?
Kill Hitler. First thing I do.
Before TV. Would you go somewhere where there was no TV if you had to stay there forever?
I mean, like, no. I mean, obviously, right now is the best time to be alive. But, like, would it be cool to be like fucking Henry V? Probably. I don't know. That'd be kind of cool.
Okay, so I want to make a TV show that's about like a medieval king.
Okay.
And he comes to the future.
Yes, I will star in it, yeah.
And he's just jazzed all the time. Like, he's the most grateful person because his life here and he doesn't have money in the future. He just is like, oh my God, like he's got a microwave, he's got a TV. And he'd be with some other people who are more like curmudgeonly and ungrateful, and there'd be some kind of adventures that need to be solved. And he'd just always be like, this is great.
Yeah, no, of course. Like, you could say, like, we all live better than most kings lived throughout history. True. In a lot of ways, true. But, you know, what you'd miss being a king is, like, kill this guy. You know? Like, that's like, obviously it's not good because murder's bad and you don't want to kill anybody. But that's a ton of power that you had. Where you could just be like, murder this guy. We're declaring war in France. Bring me 8 concubines to suck me off. Like, you know, you miss that part of it. You know what I mean? There's not a lot of places to get 8 concubines.
That's the main part of it that I would miss.
Is the concubines. No, you would. I mean, listen, imagine you're the Queen of England in 15 whatever. You get to fuck whoever you want. You get to tell people whatever to do. Everyone has to, you know, eat your shit all the time. Like, that feels good as that person. Coming here, you would miss that. You'd be like, oh, wow, I have a TV. And, oh, wow, I can drive. And it's like, that shit's cool. And you're getting to eat, like, way better food. And, you know, instead of having, like, I was gonna say, like, you got a laundry machine, but if you're a king, you're not doing your fucking laundry. Some other piece of shit's doing your laundry. I mean, like, that's the thing. Like, there's, you know, it's one of those things where it's like those human power elements are consistent throughout history. Doesn't matter if it's 10,000 BC or whatever year we're in now.
So you would go for greater amounts of power versus...
No, I would want to be here. I'm just saying that's what they would miss. First of all, I wouldn't enjoy being a king. Like, I mean, for the parts I would enjoy, but it's like, I don't want to tell people what to do. That's evil. Like, I don't want to, like, I'm a domineering person, so I would still do it, 100%. But, like, I think, like, deep down, you know, my superhero or whatever, like, the moral center of me would be like, that's evil.
Are you a domineering person?
You don't think so? Fuck you, dude. You're insulting me.
No, I'm saying, are you?
I don't like being told what to do. I hated being told what to do.
But do you like telling other people what to do?
Not necessarily. I do, like, legitimately, I mean, this is fucking very not unsympathetic, but what's what I'm looking for. This does not paint me in the best light, but, like, I do legitimately think I'm smarter than, like, 90% of people or whatever. So I do legitimately think I'm better than a lot of people, which is not, again, this is very honest, and I know it makes me a shitty person, but, you know, there's a part of me that thinks that 100%.
Okay, so, but this is something I've started to see about myself is, like, I think if you get identified, like, above average intellect as a kid...
Don't post that part about me saying better, because there are so many people will fucking be like, I knew it, this piece of shit.
No, but it's like you start to think like your intelligence is a big component of your personality, and there's like this like you wouldn't be able to just be told as a kid like you're better looking than other kids, therefore you're better. But there's that like insinuation if you're smarter, you're better. But I feel like smarter people are not what we've made them out to be.
I agree with you 100%.
And I feel like very like, would you say Elon Musk has been indoctrinated, but that he's still smarter than most people?
I don't think he's particularly smart, honestly. Like, he maybe knows how to code and shit, but he's, like, kind of a dumbass. Like, if you look at anything he says or does, he's just to an extent, a con man that, like, builds things on, oh, hey, Tesla's going to be the #1 car in the world, and then it rises by, like, 5,000% or whatever over 10, 20 years. But it's like, if you look at actual sales, they don't make it more... I haven't checked in a while, but I'm pretty sure they earn way less than, like, Honda when it comes to actual like raw sales data, it's just based on potential in the future and yada yada. And he's like, we're gonna do the space program and we're gonna have a Tesla battery in every home, and that's all, you know, confidence building. But no, but to your point, I don't think smarter makes you a better person. I just think for me, like I'm never gonna be 6 foot or 6'5". I'm never gonna be the tallest guy. They're gonna be the strongest guy. They're gonna be the best looking. I don't even have fucking hair. Like I'm never, you know, there's so many things I can be like, I'm never gonna be this, I'm never gonna be that. One thing I've always been able to rely on is like, I feel that in most rooms, I'll be the smartest guy in the room. That's how, you know, whether that's true or not, whatever, I believe in it, it makes me feel better, you know?
There's also like, sometimes I talk to people who like, I'm sure are not very smart. Like, they
comedy?
they have like an intellectual disability, but when they tell me about their life, I can tell like they know what they're talking about. They're grounded in reality. They have interesting things to say. And then I talk to people that I'm like arguably very intelligent, like has a master's degree, these kinds of people. And I'm like, but they're not good.
Yeah, no, 100%. Or they don't know shit about anything.
I don't even mean like that they're not moral, because I don't kind of like, obviously there's some people who are quite evil, but I kind of think most people are like good and bad, right? But I just feel like there's a lot of smart people who are, I don't know, like away from having useful thoughts.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, absolutely. And you could be like over intellectualized. Like if you just do school all the time or go to university for a PhD or a master's or whatever, like they'll teach you a certain way of thinking that's not even necessarily like based on reality. Like I did my economics and law degree, and like one of the things they tell you, I remember it was like, oh gosh, what was this argument we had? It was basically just how like every single thing we do is efficient. Every law we have is efficient. And if it's not an efficient law, it will be challenged. And then if it's challenged enough, it will be changed. And I'm like, no, because if a law is inefficient for society but benefits the richest people, they have the most resources to challenge. Like if you're poor, you can't afford a lawyer to challenge it. And I brought this up in class. I was like, if you have a law that really impacts negatively the poorest in society, benefits the 1% or whatever, but impacts the bottom 50% negatively. Doesn't really impact everybody else that much. It's objectively, from an utilitarian perspective, worse for people. Just human beings are more going to suffer. And I don't really believe in trickle down or whatever, that the wealthy share. They don't. So if you have that law, it's not going to get challenged because the poorest people don't have. First of all, they don't have the knowledge or to challenge the law. And even if they did, if you're working, if you're living paycheck to paycheck, you're not reading up on different laws that are being passed or economic impact on your fucking life, right? So they don't have that knowledge or that access to that knowledge. And then even if they did, they don't have the money to go hire someone to go challenge it. It's like, no, the rules are going to be built by the people with the resources to shape them. And he was like, yeah, I guess that's true. And then we just moved on. And it was stupid. It was a waste of my fucking time. My whole degree is obviously a waste. Economics, I don't know if you ever, it's a bullshit fake science. It doesn't exist. It's silly. It's made up. It's just rich people creating different mathematical equations to confuse other people and then be like, actually, that's why we need all the wealth. Because we're smart and actually it actually helps everybody when we have everything. That's really all economics is to an extent. I mean, some fields of economics. There's others, that are different and try and look at it from a more holistic view, but it's all just fucking theory crafting. It's really, people talk about economics if it's a science. It's much more closer to psychology, where it's a soft science,
Does it approach English literature?
Yeah, basically. Why not? It's all conjecture. If economics was a science, people would be able to predict interest rates, they'd be able to predict economic fallouts, they'd be able to predict all this shit. They don't. People after the fact say, oh, we knew it the whole time, but they don't. So many people lose money trading on interest rates and all this other shit when they have no idea. So it's it's again built by rich people to justify their existence and their money and their wealth and why it accrues and how it's actually good that wealth accrues in the hands of a few hundred people or 1,000 people or whatever. I guess everybody else. I don't know. Totally different fucking angle for your podcast. Now we're ranting about economics, but yeah, I would love to murder a lot of people.
Who would be your top 5?
Ooh, to kill? Jeez.
Do 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Fuck,
Number
that's
5.
hard. That's really hard. I mean, the classics, like Musk, Bezos, put them all in there. Bill Gates, probably. Zuckerberg, probably. All those guys, all the fucking tech billionaires could easily kill. There's a lot of investment guys, what's that guy who owns I always get BlackRock and Blackstone confused, but one of them is
I don't think I know what Blackstone is.
Stone. One of them is like the biggest money manager in the world, and one of them's BlackRock. So then Blackstone is a private equity fund. I think it's run by Schwartzman is his name. I'd kill that guy. He's a piece of shit. I mean, everybody who works there is a piece of shit. But yeah, obviously starting with the CEO. Like, I'd kill that guy.
My friend Lynn works at BlackRock.
I'll kill Lynn too. Sorry, Lynn, trying to go. I mean, at the end of the day, it's like those are evil organizations. Like they only create suffering, really. And yeah, I would happily murder everybody there. But you know, I'm not going to. So I guess that's good. I don't have the capacity to do that, and I'm lazy. So
you're not you're not a violent person.
No, I'm a coward by nature. Like I wouldn't do it. But like that Mangione guy, I'm like, that's cool. Like his politics are fucking weird, and the way he thinks is crazy. But shooting a healthcare guy is awesome. Like that's awesome. That there's nobody who's done more. Like that guy makes money off of people being denied coverage. That guy is a evil operator in an evil industry. He's the top. Him being shot, and they denied like coverage. I remember that came out like to like 1/3 of all people. So like yeah, fuck that guy. He's killed people. Like I no issue with him being murdered. I don't believe in murder as like a justifiable response to things. But if you fuck society over long enough and there's no, reasonable like upcoming recompense, even in fixing the laws, yeah, if someone shoots you, I think that's like totally fine.
Who do you think is the most admirable person in history?
In history?
Yeah.
Stephen Karmazyn actually is pretty nice. No, I don't know. In history? I don't know. I don't have enough knowledge to really like.
Okay,
but like
somebody you think about.
Like I'm a big fan of Bernie Sanders. I love Bernie Sanders.
Oh, I knew this about you.
Yeah, I'm a huge Bernie fan. I got to meet him once. It was cool.
What?
Meet him? Nah. When I was in journalism, like in studying journalism, we went down to do the 2020 elections with the primaries. So I saw him, Hillary Clinton, Donald Trump. I met the guy from New York or New Jersey. New Jersey. He's a senator. Bad breath, but I forget his name. But he was like a big member of the Democratic Party for a while.
New York senator?
New Jersey, I want to say. He was a mayor, then a senator. He's a black guy. He's got nice eyes. Good-looking guy, tall. He was dating like a hot actress at one point, but everyone thinks he's gay.
Sounds great.
Yeah. You can Google him after. I forget his name, but yeah. So like Bernie is like my.
Did you know Bernie is doing some kind of like events lately? Like
yeah,
he's
they're
traveling
selling
around?
out. Yeah.
I'm very excited about this. Like.
Yeah, but he's too old now, and it's like time has come and gone. Like in 2016 and 2020, that was our shot, and the Democrats I can say they fucked us. It was like also people just didn't vote for him to an extent, but like also, when fucking Obama called everybody and was like drop out and support Joe during Super Tuesday, and basically just to fuck Bernie, like that was like deeply evil.
So one thing, like my whole life, I've had to talk to like Americans who are like so upset about things that are just socialist because they're like, you can't be communist. Mm-hmm. But now in this current tariff war, I'm hearing people just say straight up communist stuff, like about controlling markets and deciding who's going to produce what. And I'm like, why, if you don't mind full communism, then why couldn't you just have nationalized healthcare like every other country?
Yeah.
But like, why? I don't know. Like,
people have no actual political consent. If you actually look at like average political opinions on everything, they're totally fucking scattershot. Like there's a small subset of people who pay attention to everything and have some degree of knowledge or some actual like ideas. I'm not even saying like ideas is like that makes them better. They just have like, I want less taxes because it will help my wealth grow or whatever. Like there are some people who actually think these things.
They have consistent
values or whatever, exact opinions. But then there's a bunch of people who don't know shit and just like think random things that they see on the TV or they hear on social media or whatever, and they'll just be easily swayed one way or the other. Like my parents aren't politically engaged people. They're just like, I have to do this because of X or I have to do this because of like my mom's like, pretty like, I don't know. She's not like pro-Israel, but she's like relatively pro-Israel. And and I'm very anti-Israel, and I get their perspective that their parents were in the Holocaust, blah blah blah. They want to think, I don't want to get into that element, but what I'm saying is like she's a one-issue voter. She like votes for people who are pro-Israel usually. But then I remember she doesn't like Doug Ford because even though he's like relatively pro-Israel, she's bad for teachers, and she was a special ed assistant. So she had a values essentially where it was like I like the pro-Israel part, but I'm more interested in supporting teachers because I'm part of that group, and also I work with people like that. So. Everyone has all these scattershot ideas that cross the political spectrum. They just don't really, give too much of a shit, and a ton of people don't vote. Like 30-40% of the electorate, or 50% even, or plus, don't vote.
You're not okay with Israel at all?
No, I hate it.
Okay.
Yeah. Do you want to talk? I'll talk. I don't care. I'll talk about it.
Well, we kind of come up to an hour. I'd like to talk about it to you afterwards.
I don't care. Yeah. I got extra time if you want. Sure.
10 minutes to explain Israel
Sure.
to me? Okay. You're just against it completely?
Yeah, it's an evil country.
Why?
Well, it's an ethno-nationalist state. I don't want to use too much techno-babble, whatever, blah blah blah, leftist bullshit. But yeah, it's a state that primacies the value of Jewish individuals. That's just objectively true. It's an apartheid state that it has two-tiered legal system. Like there are laws for you as a Jew, there are laws for you as a non-Jew. That's also undebatable. These aren't controversial facts; they're just facts. Those two things alone make it an evil place, in my opinion. There's benefit. Listen, it's not all bad, quote unquote. It's specifically for that part of the world, it's relatively supportive of gay people. They still can't get married and shit, but at least they're relatively acceptable in Israel, where they're certainly not in Saudi Arabia. So there are some things that you can be okay, that's not bad. And they have a democracy to an extent, which is not really true, but at least it's more democratic than a kingdom. But yeah, in terms of how they treat Palestinians and how they treat just non-Jews generally, it's absolutely despicable. And they've made a state that really primacies Jews and makes them the number one. Their whole goal is to just encourage them to procreate and prevent everyone else from procreating, and then trying to expel as many Palestinians as possible while also expanding their land. And those are just all evil things.
Have you spent time there at all?
Yeah, I lived there for a bit.
Do you see that there could be any future there?
In what way?
Like a post-apartheid?
No, I mean, here's the thing.
Or a two-state.
Two-state, sure, but it's at the end of the day, it's Israel will only there's way more not even Palestinians, but there's way more Palestinian. Well, I don't know the number of Palestinians in globally, but there's way more Muslims certainly than Jews in that area in the Middle East, and globally of course, but also certainly in the Middle East. And if they were to create any sort of equitable system, there may likely come a time where there would be more Muslims in Israel than Jews, and it's likely. Not certain, but it's likely that if that were to be the case, they would vote they would elect a Muslim leader, and then Israel would cease to be a Jewish nation in their eyes, right? And that's their number one concern, is just preventing population growth for Muslims while supporting, or any non-Jewish people to be fair, while supporting the population growth of Jews, right? So that alone makes it an impossible state to you can't be a Jewish state and a democracy. Those are contravening statements. If you have a state where it's Jewish people are the most important people, then you're not democratic, everybody's equal state. Those are contradictory. So yeah, that's my views in a nutshell. And it's I don't think it should exist. I understand why, and it's my parents will be my parents will tell me their parents were they never had a place to go until Israel was there, and they felt especially after the Holocaust, they needed a place of refuge or whatever. It's I understand that perspective. I'm not trying to say that's wrong thinking, and if you came from the Holocaust, I certainly understand why you would want that. But for me, it's what would be the cost of that? If the cost of that is this amount of mass immiseration of millions and millions of people because maybe one day I'll need someplace to go, it's no, I'd rather die than do that. I'd personally rather die than kill thousands and thousands and thousands of Palestinian babies and immiserate millions of people and just cause this immense suffering and turmoil.
What do you think is going to be the future there?
I'm an idiot.
More of the same.
I said I'm smarter than everybody, but I'm fucking too stupid to answer that. It's a crazy question. But, the future will be they're definitely going to continue the way they're going for many, many years. I don't think it's going to end anytime soon because they pretty much have, roughshod control of the U.S. They pretty much do whatever they want, and the U.S. kind of just have to back it and eat their shit all the time. So yeah, they're probably going to continue to do the evil shit they do for many, many years. Hopefully at some point there will be, the problem here is the Israeli population doesn't like Muslims or Arabs. They hate them. Even when they were angry at Netanyahu and everyone's oh, this is a change point. If you actually look at the polls, the vast majority of Jews in Israel are totally fine with the occupation of Palestine and the occupation of Gaza or whatever, or what they're doing in West Bank. They don't really give a shit about these people. And to an extent, of course, I understand, because it's there are many elements in surrounding areas that just want to kill every Jew. That's true. It's objectively true. There's a lot of elements that would happily just murder every Israeli. So I understand that, like, kind of like us or them thinking to an extent, but because they have that mindset and that mentality, whether it's true or not about it's certainly not true about every Palestinian or even the vast majority, but there's maybe a subset that they could justify and be like, this guy said they want to kill all Jews, so we have to kill all of them. Because they have that mentality, like, how can you make peace under those terms where it's like these people want to kill all of us, so we should kill all of them, and vice versa. Both sides, there's elements on both sides that think that. How can you have peace in that respect? You can't. So it would take a whole dramatic shift in thinking before any sort of peace could be struck. And then also the future of Israel has to be like, hey, this may not be a Jewish state one day, and that's okay. And there's no Israeli who would be okay with that. I should say no. There's not many.
Like I have is with whenever people talk about Israel-Palestine, it feels like there's an existing conflict with two really aggressive sides, and then all people do is like come in on one side or the other. And if you don't come in on one side or the other, then you're like, oh, you're not serious. But it's like, I feel like when you come, if two people are fighting and I start fighting with one person, it didn't end the violence, right? You're just now harming the other side.
No, I understand what you're saying, and I sympathize to an extent, because like it's not like it's not like no Jew has ever been harmed by surrounding people in surrounding countries or whatever. So it's not like they're totally ridiculous to believe that people would kill them or would want to kill them or get rid of their country. But at the same time, it's like when you have a situation where some bad things or many bad things, whatever term you want to use, like bad shit is done to Israel. But the bad shit they do to Palestinians is dramatically, like, you couldn't even put it on the same scale in terms of just numbers. And you could say that's a means question, like if Hamas had the means, they would do just as bad. Maybe, I don't know. What I do know is that Israel is doing this awful shit with the means. So it's like you can argue it from like both sides have some degree of an argument or whatever. Sure, fine, we can live in a world where that is true. But the world we definitely live in is one country is killing like thousands and thousands and thousands of people and immiserating millions and millions of people and faces relatively low casualties and really isn't at threat of being totally destroyed. Like they're not even close to that. Like it's been 50 years since that was like a real threat, more 60 almost. So that's kind of my perspective on it. It's like whenever you think about it, that's just an objective truth that the amount of pain and suffering they're causing dramatically outweighs any of the pain and suffering they're suffering. I guess. Taking it.
Have you seen the movie that just won an Oscar?
No, but I've heard of it. I'd like to watch it. Yeah.
I really want to see it
too. Now we're done. Sorry.
That's what we should do is watch. I haven't seen it, but I think it's gonna be good.
Yeah.
Is there anything you want to promote?
I mean, come to the 2020. Obviously, that's the show.
What's the date for that?
March 27th, 10 o'clock on Thursday. I was told it's the worst time.
Oh wait, this won't air this Thursday.
Who cares?
Thursday.
So it'll air the day of the show.
Okay, get out there tonight.
Go now.
Tonight, motherfuckers.
Yeah, there we go. Hell yeah. So yeah, whatever. But it's all good. I just enjoyed the talk. Thanks for having me.
And find you on socials.
Yeah, my Instagram is SEKARMAZYN. It's just my name, SE and then Karmazyn. So if they wanted to check me out, yeah.
Okay.
I'm posting.
Thank you very much.
All right, thank you.